OLAWALE ROTIMI is a leading AGRIC entrepreneur, recognized young leader in Africa's AGRIC sector, and international speaker who has addressed global audiences at high-level meetings of various multilateral institutions. He is the founder and CEO of JR Farms Limited, with operations in Nigeria, Rwanda, Zambia, and Netherlands, a leading agribusiness in Africa. Ladies and gentlemen, let's welcome OLAWALE ROTIMI.
When I got the invitation and I saw him on the flyer, my heart beat. Because I don't really know what to say when my teacher has spoken. But then I'll be speaking from the wealth of knowledge gathered from his class and also his mentorship over the years and from the practice also. So I'll be briefly speaking about how we can reposition agriculture as a thriving business. By name, I'm OLAWALE ROTIMI. Currently, I work for JR Farms. JR Farms is an agribusiness company. We operate here in Nigeria, Rwanda, Zambia, and the Netherlands. Some of you may wonder, what are we doing in these 4 countries? In Nigeria here, we work in the cassava value chain. And then in Rwanda, we work in the coffee value chain. In Zambia, we are setting up a livestock feed factory, which will be dedicated on the 19th of next month. And in the Netherlands, we export coffee. Also, Nigeria is one of the destinations where we export our coffee to. And we service quite a lot of organizations in this country, and hotels, Sheraton, Total, a lot of organizations, EcoBank, even Lagos Business School. We service them with coffee over the years. Aside export of coffee to the Netherlands, we also use it as our EU base for capital mobilization. That's the brief about myself and JR Farms. I don't know if the slide can come up. Media.
Okay. You can actually use this to control.
Good. Okay, so what do I want to do? No, not working. Good. Good, thank you. Yeah, so mine will be more experiential. Okay. I think that would be better. So mine will be more experiential because I'm a full stack entrepreneur and I move around the continent and outside the continent focusing on agribusiness. So I'll be speaking more from experience while also taking permission from my Oga to steal from some of the lessons he has taught us. The first thing we have to understand is agriculture is a business. When I went for the course in LBS in 2018, our business was at the point of expansion, and I needed a lot of knowledge. So I went to the class. And one of the things I remember Dr. first said is, agriculture is a business. He kept saying that to us. He said, why we are not prospering in Nigeria is because we take agriculture as agriculture, not as agri-business. And that sank into my head. Like every other business that has principles, that has guidelines, ethics, agriculture is a business, and you must run it as a business. What I see around Nigeria, for example, is we take it as an intervention sector or a legacy, sort of like. We're just doing it. I work with local farmers in our cassava value chain project. And we also take gari from local producers. And you realize that they are not doing it as a business. Because this is Mama Tai, who is a gari producer. She has naming ceremony in 2 weeks' time. And she needs 20,000 for the naming ceremony. She has gari worth 100,000 in the store. But she doesn't care. She only needs 20,000 in 2 weeks for the naming. So what does she do? She takes the gari, sell at 20,000, do the naming ceremony. The cycle continues. So we realize that most people take agriculture more as intervention sector. And that's why you hear all these loans, like Dr. said, anchor borrower, you're throwing loans all over the place. I would say that Nigeria, I've traveled quite around the continent. I've done about 16 countries now on the continent. Nigeria is the only country where I see that they keep throwing loans. Anchor borrower, this borrower, that one borrower, CBN this, CBN that at farmers. But despite all these interventions, the demographics are not positive. They're not positive. The gap keep getting wide. What is happening? Why are the how did they spend the loans that given to the farmers for rice production, for example? How did it go for cassava production? In Nigeria, for example, we are the largest cassava producer in the world, not by output, but by numbers of farmers. If you compare what we get, Brazil gets per acre or per hectare, compared to what Nigeria gets, it's small. So we're actually leading in cassava production, not because we have more productivity in cassava, but we have high number of cassava farmers, everywhere in the village, behind the house, you see people planting cassava. So we need to understand that agriculture is a business, and you have to take it as a business. As a business. I think that's the first thing. And I back that up with Hosea 4:1. People perish for lack of knowledge. One of the first challenges I had in agribusiness was a knowledge gap. So I started with a farmers cooperative, which failed because I got the model from African Development Bank then. And with all excitement, I took it, but didn't look at the details. And we gave these farmers money, not so much money, and also some input. And they lied to us, they never paid back. The whole thing failed because I didn't have the right knowledge. When I went back to the model, okay, this is what this model says. They must be guaranteed by the local chief. First, I implemented that. From 203, we realized that there are only 97 real farmers. 203 down to 90. That's, over 100% what? Slash. So the others were just arranging farms. They go to people and then, I just want to show these guys your farm. Then we go, they sure, so this is my maize farm, this is my cassava farm, blah, blah, blah. They took the money and never paid back. So we suffered a knowledge gap. And more what we see people suffering, jumping into the agric sector, is they suffer the knowledge gap. And that's why you must understand, it's a business. It's not something you say, oh, I want to retire. My dad, when he was retiring, he said he wanted to go into fish farming. I laughed. I told him, I said, you better go and use your benefit for some other things. And then he started, I think a couple of years, 1 or 2 years before he retired, he did a small pond in the house. Fish died today, tomorrow. At the end of the day, they started bringing out from the pond and eating in the house so that the entire thing doesn't waste. So it's not something you sit and say, I'm retiring in 2 years. I'll take my gratuity into family. Like Doctor said, there are a lot of people, you sink money, and you can't even see the money. You don't see it, So it must be taken as a business, which is very important. I'm talking from experience as an entrepreneur because that's how we have handled it as a business. Secondly, it's a simple, at the same time complex business. Why I say that is, a lot of people, what I see in Nigeria, we're talking about reposition for growth, is that people get involved in too many things in agricultural value chain. We can see the value chain: input, production, processing, marketing, consumer. We'll go further to the analysis of
the value chain. And you see that even under input, for example, you have the seed breeders, you have the fertilizer sellers, all manner of things under the input. But in Nigeria today, you have someone who is the one producing the fingerlings, at the same time breeding the fingerlings, at the same time smoking the fishes, at the same time marketing the whole thing. The same person is planting cassava. The same person is breeding cassava stem. The same person will harvest the cassava and go and process. At the end of the day, it tells on your management because you're stressing yourself so much. I'm quite exposed to the Netherlands, and the Netherlands is, of course, one of the biggest countries in agriculture. It's a small country, like about the size of Lagos. But when it comes to agriculture in the world, you can't take out the Netherlands. The Netherlands, for example, that's the only country you go to, and you visit a company who only produces 50 cl bottling for water. That's all. It's only that country I see where they have AGRIC packaging companies. What they do only is produce packaging for agricultural produce. So you're looking for packaging for avocado, and they also specialize. Some will tell you, oh, I'm only doing avocado packaging. That's all. Some tell you, I'm only doing packaging for tomatoes. So they specialize. Now, you see on the demographics for avocado, for example, Netherlands is the biggest importer of avocado. At the same time, the second largest exporter of avocado. Avocado does not grow in the Netherlands. They don't plant avocado. But they go where? They specialize. They come to Kenya, come to Zambia, come to Rwanda, go everywhere. They gather the avocado, bring it to Rotterdam at the port, bring it to Amsterdam. When it comes in, what do? They repackage the thing. Take it to US, take it to all manner of places. Supply industries that will use it for other products. They are the largest importer, at the same time the second largest exporter. We need to start connecting it. It's a business. And you need to find a place to play. People reach out to me and say, oh, GR Farms, we hear you're in the cassava value chain. How many farmers do you have? I don't have any farmer. I don't even have a foot of cassava farm. Why do I need to worry myself about planting cassava? A friend reached out to me some years ago. He's in the Netherlands. He said, hey, I want you to check a land for me in Ibadan. I said, what about it? He said, oh, I pumped in about 50 million to plant cocoa. This guy seemed to be duping me. I want you to verify for me. I said, okay, no problem. Where is it? Who is the contact? He gave me the contact. I was passing through Ibadan. I stopped by. It's a long crane. And then when we got into the bush, thick bush, we got to the place and the guy was showing me a mountain. I said, that's the land. Okay, where are the cocoas? No cocoa. So I called my friend. I said, Hoye, you don't have a farm. Take your 50 million as a learning cost. He was mad. At the end of the day, I asked him a simple question. I said, what are you trying to do exactly? He said, oh, he got buyers of specialty cocoa in the Netherlands, and then he wants to have a contract with them, so he wants to plant cocoa. I said, no, you don't do that. You don't need to plant cocoa to sell cocoa to a buyer. Do you need to do that? All you'd have done is make a phone call, get people to aggregate cocoa for you, and then you export. Get the standard you want. Let them bring the standard you want, and then you sell to the buyer. You don't need to wait for donkey years for cocoa to grow. And it was like, wow. But that is a challenge we have now in Nigeria. I spoke to a woman here on the island, and she's like, oh, you know what? I want to go into chicken. She's retiring also. I want to go to chicken business. I said, okay, what's the end goal? She said, frozen food. I want to have a frozen food store on the island. I say, you know what? And she said she's going to establish the chicken farm in Ikorodu. I said, you don't need to struggle. Just set up your frozen food on the island. Go and get out growers. Collect chicken from them. Put it in your frozen store. She said, no. She must do what? She must. Well, the story went south. She ended up burning her hands. Because it tells on your management. It tells on your management. So one important thing we have to understand is, as simple as it is, it can be complex if you don't narrow down to a point in the value chain. For example, I only produce Gary in the cassava value chain. Now, I don't stress myself to market it. They come. We go to the nearest market, which is in the village, Gambari, very big market in terms of people coming. I sell there. I sell at minimum margin, but I'm good. The chain continues. Someone came to me and said, you can export to Europe, to the UK. I said, okay, let's explore. Now it takes about 3 weeks to get a container to London. And then by the time we did all the mathematics with clearing, we're only going to be making about 500,000 profit after going through about 4 to 5 weeks shipping, clearing, delivering. And I'm like, I can do this cycle in a week, selling to my local market. Why do I need to export? Why do I need to do that? Is it for the fun of I'm exporting or for the pride of I'm export? I don't need to do that. I'll just call these guys, hey, I have 10 tons. Okay, bring it. The funny thing is I even use motorcycle from the factory. They just be taking it, the laborers, taking it in small 2 bags, 3 bags. They continue like that because the market is just less than a kilometer to the factory. We need to be able to narrow. We need to be able to focus at a point. Proverbs 4:25 says, let your eyes look directly ahead. Be focused. Be focused is very, very important. Okay, so we'll look at the analysis of the value chain. So you see how complex it can be. Look at under inputs. You have the seed, you have the fertilizer, you have the pesticide, you have the herbicide. So that you see that when you want to get involved in everything, you see the complexity you want to face. You have the labor, you have the land, you have irrigation, you have drought power, blah, blah, blah. You have certification to face. Now, when you even talk about labor, Nigeria is one of the countries where human capital is difficult. Some people tell me, say, how do you employ? I said, there's no rule to employing for us. We just keep trying. We have tried recommendation, it doesn't work. You have tried this, it doesn't work. You just keep trying. I think one of the things that have worked for us is employing females. They are more detailed and nothing bad meant for the men. But from experience, employing female, we have more female workforce because they are more detailed, more honest also. Men are also honest anyway. Yeah, so we have a lot of labor challenges in Nigeria. For example, in the factory, I think about 3 or 4 weeks ago, our manager, who's the lady anyway, she just got to the factory and realized the gate man had left. He just left. And then the whole week, the plan for the whole week was distorted. He just left. We were calling him, he didn't pick, he just packed his clothes and left after collecting salary. That was end of last month. Now, it distorted the whole plan for the week because we couldn't keep the factory empty. You have machines, you have goods. How do you keep it empty? Then we now call DPO of the station. We started paying 10,000 per week until we got another gate man for the police to be patrolling at night. Now, these are challenges that are there. Now you see, you want to grow. You have the smallholder farming, you have the medium scale, you have the large scale, which is commercial processing. You're working with aggregation, storage is there, and market is there. Where do you want to play? You don't need to be everywhere. I'll tell you an interesting thing we're doing in Rwanda. We have a partnership with RFCC. RFCC owns the coffee farmers. I don't do. The facility is owned by the government. I don't do. We only plugged in. All of us meet at the center point. You know what? I can push this coffee out for export. Or the government says, okay, you can push this out, use this facility. RFCC, you have the farmers, bring the farmers to these guys. Simple. Why do I have to say because I want to roast coffee, then I need to go and plant coffee, learn how to plant coffee, start racking my head. Oh, I need to move to Rwanda, pack my family. Let's go. We have 5 years to grow this coffee. I don't need to do that. And you realize that the more you focus, the more efficient you become. In 4 years now, we have really done well in coffee because we just focus on the facility is there, not owned by us. Of course, we pay for the maintenance. The coffee farmers are there, not owned by us. So I don't worry about quality. I don't worry about whether the coffee is good. The harvest is good or not. What I care about is I need 10 tons of the raw material, the raw coffee, which is green beans. It gets to me. Simple. So what I just focus on is, okay, I get my packaging on ground, get the quality we want, roast it, and look for market. So I'm in the U.S. in 2018, going from street to street in Washington. This is my coffee. So I'm able to create more results. Imagine if I was involved in the entire value chain. That would be a waste. A total waste. So you have to be able to understand, where can I play? Where can I play? And one of the things Doctor said, which is quite important, someone asked about the digital, ROI. A lot of times I get calls and like, I have this money. Can I give it to you? How many ROI will you give me in 6 months? I said, we don't do that. We have never done it. Because it never works. You may get your money back, but not from agriculture if they tell you the rate thing they use your money for. It doesn't work like that. I'll give you an example. The first time we imported coffee to Nigeria, I was in doctor's class that week. That was the first module. Then, I had gathered information. This is how you import into Nigeria. Just do this, just do it. I read all those things. It looks very straightforward. But we lifted the coffee from Kigali and it landed in Lagos. And the battle started. It started. It was like play. Day 1, day 2, day 3, week 1, week 2. What? And we had done a lot of publicity. Coffee is coming out June 1, 2018. Get ready. And then June 1 came. Because the coffee landed, I think 2 days before June 1. And from what I read, you could clear in 24 hours. But it was totally opposite in experience. Imagine if I got money from someone and say, you know what? Give me 1 month. I'll give you XYZ ROI. And my coffee is stocked at the airport. We keep paying 30,000, 50,000. At the end of the day, how do you expect me to pay that back? Yeah. Let's move quickly. Now the potentials, I won't dwell so much on that because Doctor already dealt with that. We have a rising population, of course, that we need to feed. And feeding is not a once in a lifetime. It's a once and again. You feed this morning, you feed in the afternoon. Even when you fast, you break. You have to keep feeding as long as you're living. So we have a population to feed. Each time I travel around Africa, this population growth keep rising. And people keep eating. 2/3 of what's arable land is also here in Africa. We have huge markets. We have affordable labor. If you read in America and Europe, for example, one of the biggest problems they have is labor crisis. The population has become so urban that they don't take up some jobs anymore. But in Africa, you have affordable labor. Here you can get someone in the Gary factory to peel cassava. You're peeling a truck of cassava for 3,000, 3,500. When you take that to Europe, they start counting hours. So we have affordable labor. And then we also have huge intercontinental markets. A lot of times I tell people, I say, our biggest market in GR farms is still Africa. A lot of times people want to say, I want to export. When they talk about export, you know what they're thinking of? Europe and America. I've had other experiences. If you want to take coffee to America, for example, they price you down. Too many coffee. So what is your own, what is special about yours? They price you down. Because, a lot of coffee. You go to Europe also, they do what? They price you down. Because the inflow is huge. But you take your coffee from Rwanda, you take it to Central African Republic. You see that even the coffee coming from Europe, for example, in Nigeria, coffee is selling one of the cheapest in the market, not because we have a poor quality, but the ones even coming from Europe are more expensive. are more expensive. We enter the market selling $20 per kilo. Interestingly, we have only increased to $22. Just increasing the price once. And you have seen other brands increase their price, doing $30, above $30. So the good thing also is when you're doing your intra-African market trading, you're also heading the same forex you're looking for in Europe, the same forex you're looking for in America. After all, if I sell my product to, let's say, Kenya, they won't pay me in shillings. Because I don't live there and I don't spend shillings. They pay me in dollars. If I take my coffee, for example, we ship to Ivory Coast, it goes to Ivory Coast. I don't spend franc. I don't spend the local currency. They pay you in dollars. So we have a huge inter-African market. Although there are challenges around logistics, but also the market is not competitive yet. You can still penetrate through. Those are the potentials. Now you look at the complexity of the value chain again. Let's take inbound logistics, for example. You have the raw materials. You have, for example, questions like, where do you source your raw materials from? You have, how do you design purchasing and payment terms? We have talked about agriculture being a business. And these are details you have to look at. What kind of logistics model are you looking at? What inventory management system? How do you store your raw materials? These are just examples of things you have to look at. Because a lot of times, you talk to people. There's a retired senior prison officer who I know is doing agriculture. And he called me one day. He said, you know what, I need loan. So quickly. How many months have you done that you're needing loan? He said, this thing, I want to expand it. I said, okay. Do you have your books? And then he went mute. No books. He's just doing the thing. So I sat down with him. I visited him in Kwara. And I sat down with him, with his wife. After we looked at the thing, he was running negative in hundreds of thousands every month. And the man was just doing the thing. Every day, feeding. The manager will come. Take money. But he was deceived by the fact that people were buying egg. You get money back, But it was no books, nothing showing. So you really have to look at the details and ask questions, When it comes to operations, you have to look at the details also. How do you manage your IP? Don't say, agriculture need, you have to manage for example, in Zambia, we are taking a unique product to Zambia. In Nigeria, animals have been eating cassava peel for many years. In Southern Africa, in Eastern Africa, they throw it away. Now in Southern Africa, there's a crisis for livestock feed, which is fueled by the demand for maize, because over there, just the way we eat rice here, they eat maize. It's their staple. So, and animals, they're also big in livestock. These are countries that export beef to Europe. You get to a cattle farm in Zambia, you can see 2,000, 3,000 heads. I'm not talking about those ones running around, though. In a particular ranch. So they are really big. Now we are going to Zambia to start using cassava peel to formulate feed. We signed a partnership with Zambian breweries because they are the largest single off-taker of cassava. But they only take the tubers for their ethanol, while they throw away the peels. Now we need to protect the IP. We're pretending it in Zambia. Because by the time we start it, people will start replicating it. We went for the training in IITA. They named us the first cassava peel mover. I set up a 1 ton in the factory. Let's start it for research as far back as 2019. Let's be running this thing. Produce HQCP. Let's just be doing it for research before we move out to this country. So you need to think of your IP. Don't just take and say, no, it's just a Think of your IP. What are your staffing requirements? For Nigeria, I need to tell you we don't have staffing requirement because we have tried many things. It doesn't really work. But for other countries where we operate, what are your staffing requirements? What is the age range you're looking at? What is the experience you're looking at? Product line and packaging, quality assurance. Doctor talked about quality, infrastructure management, production plans and target. How do you plan your production? Your M&E is very important, and your R&D, very important. I'll rush up. Some of the challenges you're likely to experience, of course, particularly in Nigeria, is poor infrastructures. You know, I did a video I shared on my Facebook and my WhatsApp recently. I was traveling to the factory, and I got to Oyogbomoso Road. It was blocked from hand to hand. And we had to take one way, facing trucks. I mean, a 43-kilometer road blocked from hand to hand. And then you see the trucks bringing your food from the north. They are stuck on that road. Tomato sitting there for 2-3 days. Watermelon there. Cucumber. Cattle. You even see some. They will bring the goats and cattle down to graze because they have been in the traffic for hours. So we have the infrastructural problem. It's a huge one. I grew up passing that road. 30 years after, the road is still like that. Now, poor knowledge of agribusiness. Like Doctor said, seek mentorship. A lot of people go out and say, no, I have 10 million naira savings. I want to do agribusiness. Get knowledge. I'll wrap up shortly. Also start with a pilot. It's very, very important. Pilots can be relative, I tell people. For example, a pilot for Dangote could mean an 100 million naira project. But for you, a pilot could mean 1 million naira. A pilot for Bill Gates could mean a $1 billion project. That's a pilot for him because he knows his pocket. Also, low value addition and human capital. How do you enhance the value chain? You know, identify key stakeholders. It's very important. Identify key stakeholders. Understand economic demands. Don't just jump into it. Don't say, people will say, I'm going to agriculture. Why are you going to agriculture? People will always eat. I asked them, I said, before you went into it, what were they eating? And when you go into it, what makes you feel that it's your own food they will eat? If you're not going to do it, won't they continue eating? So don't go into the mentality of people will always eat. Understand the economic demands. Where is the market? How do I get them? Lastly, partnerships for productivity. You must understand partnerships for productivity. You don't need to do everything. I've talked about many partnerships we have. For example, we have a fund, we set up Green Agribusiness Fund with FAO and ILO. We bring the funds to invest in these young entrepreneurs, and then ILO brings technical support, FAO brings technical support. We can't say we want to do everything. We are going to be messed up. So you need to identify partnerships that are going to work. Where do you play? What expertise do you have? What can I bring on board? Yeah, let me just wrap up. I'm glad to answer questions as you may have them and then exchange ideas. Thank you so much.